And there is a quorum present. Okay. Tom Keegan, we take attendance.
Here.
Kadeem Roberts.
Present.
John Kites, he'll be late. George Theodorides.
Here.
And George Sterenides.
Here.
Manny Langella.
Here.
All right. And I am present. So we have a quorum. Okay. So on approval of the January 13th, 2021 minutes. Someone want to make a motion to approve those? Tom? All right. And by George, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, opposed, abstentions? None. So we had no public participation for this portion of the meeting? Okay. All right. We'll move on to the items. So Nick, we're not having anyone speak. Okay, we'll have them speak afterwards. So no one is here to just speak on the fees, correct? We established that, right?
Correct. Tom, I came in late, but you're here for the go-kart, correct?
Yeah, yes.
There is one person from the public with their hand up also.
Okay.
So maybe we allow that person to speak.
Yes.
Yes.
Jody Sattler. Jody, if you unmute yourself, you could speak. Please give your address.
17 Highland Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm calling it at the right time of when to make my comments, but I did see that there was on the agenda about field usage, accessibility, and fees. So I'm calling in regards to that. I have reached out to many members of the Common Council and members of this committee in regards to the real big issues and problems that we have with field access in the city of Norwalk and youth organizations and youth athletes. It's an issue I've been having for years. I've been involved in lots of sports and different organizations, and I spent the summer driving my children to Greenwich and Westport and Stamford and everywhere else while our fields sat empty or were used by adult pickup games, by camps that were not permitted. At one point at West Rocks Field, there was even an adult biking group that circled the West Rocks Field. We provided no permits to any organizations who are actually providing very good programming for kids. And it's reached the point now that I believe we have a Title IX liability with the way that fields are permitted and accessed in the city of Norwalk. I can give many examples, but the one that I can give very specifically is if you are a female athlete who wants to play soccer in high school, club soccer, in the city of Norwalk, there is not a single option for you to play here because none of the organizations that provide club soccer for high school athletes, female athletes, are allowed to use the fields in Norwalk. This is an issue that's been going on literally for so many years. I've talked to the former Parks and Rec director about this. Nothing has ever changed. We don't allow equal access to our fields. We allow only certain organizations to use them, and then that's it. Right now in this pandemic, these kids are spending so much time in front of their computers. There are organizations that are following state guidelines, that they are providing practices for players to get out and do something, all within the safety guidelines of the state. None of those organizations are allowed to use the fields in Norwalk. So if you want to participate in any sort of sports, you have to leave this town. It's frustrating. I do it for my kids, but the kids that we really hurt are the lower income kids who need to ride their bikes to the fields, who don't have parents that can drive them to Greenwich and Westport. Again, I would leave Norwalk, drive past Roten Middle School, Brian McMahon High School, Rowayton Elementary School. No sports being played except by pickup games all summer. And I would go show up at Westport, for example, Wakeman Field, every single field being used. I don't understand why we don't have our turf fields being used every day, all day, equal access to many organizations. And I don't understand why we don't want to encourage our kids to get out and be active and move. We're not providing any programming. The clubs that have access to these fields are not providing any programming. And the fields are sitting empty, which means if you are a Westchester County adult soccer league, you know you can show up at any of these fields and play a pickup game and nobody's going to bother you. If you are a coach wanting to provide private lessons for a player, you can show up at Brian McMahon High School and the fields will be open. That's who's using our fields right now because we don't allow organizations who are getting it together to use the fields. Sorry. I have so much more I could say, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Ms. Sattler. Is that it, Larry? Anyone else?
Yes, we have one other person. Please state your name and your address for the record, please. From East Norwalk Neighborhood Association.
Good evening, everyone. It's Diane Cece from East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. I'm sorry, I think I hopped on a minute late. I'm not sure if you're still in a public hearing or a public comment on the agenda.
Diane, I think you can do both. I think because there was a little bit of confusion, I think we can allow you to comment on both.
I'm sorry, Darlene, I didn't hear you. Are you in
I'm
a
sorry.
public hearing?
So can you hear me? So with the public hearing piece started 6:45 to 7, but there was a little bit of confusion
Okay.
with what went out. So if you wanted to speak to that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thanks, Darlene. Yeah, actually, I was just going to speak to public comment, so I didn't want to
Okay.
interrupt the public hearing if that was still open. So I'll be
So
brief.
either way.
So I just wanted to mention, actually, I'm not sure who some of the folks are on the screen there. I would just say before my comment, I hope the chair would consider, like we've asked other committees to do as well, to allow the public to show their camera shots as well. I'm not sure if your committee allows that. Not that I really want to do that tonight anyway, but so I'm calling because I've been following the agendas and I'm excited and I'm optimistic to see that even during COVID right now, you have some of the very popular events for the summer coming up on these agendas to start to hold their traditional spots at the parks and at the beach, etc. And that's a good thing because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it's better to have those booked and ready to go. And then if they unfortunately have to cancel, we'll have to deal with it then. But because you're actually doing some of these bookings now for the summer and beyond, anything that has to do with East Norwalk, I just wanted to remind the committee and also staff. Hi, Nick. I just wanted to remind you that the upcoming DOT work relative to the Walk Bridge project and East Avenue, the Advanced Utility project actually starts in April. And that's going to be major disruption in East Norwalk on East Avenue, obviously at the railroad bridge, and then also throughout East Norwalk because of the detours have to do when there are road closures and lane closures. And I would just want to ask the committee and staff to make sure that that you follow this closely and that you're working hand in hand with the Walk Bridge project and the traffic authority when you're scheduling these events. Some of you may recall that back in October and November, ENA met with the traffic authority and then had the Walk Bridge folks as our guest at a public forum on this. And they had committed to not do any weekend closures related to this massive project in July and August. But there could be weekend closures in April, May, and June, and then beyond August. And I think some of your events actually start in May and June. And It may be even that the dog show is in there. So, and that's on a weekend. And so I guess I just want to say that, you know, be aware of that schedule because that could impact it. And then any community groups where we have these big events where people come from out of town, you'll want to advise those groups to advise their guests and their staff that they could be subject to detours and for people to be able to work around that. Nick, I do have the presentation from the Walkbridge folks. If you want me to shoot that over to you, because I do have the timeline in there. And
Yes, please.
I am expecting them to come back to us in the next 4 weeks or so with a little bit more a detailed plan than what we saw in November even. So I can
Yes,
get that
please.
over to you and, you know, with all their contact information as well. But really
Yep, and-
excited to see that these things are on the agenda. So it's I think it's giving everybody hope to look forward to all of the events that we love, especially the big ones that we have in East Norwalk. Thank you, everyone.
I'll take that email and I'll follow up with DPW and
Okay.
Vanessa, who's
Yep.
the liaison for the Walkbridge project.
That's super. Thanks. I'm logging off and I'll send it to you as soon as I do. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Darlene.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right, that's it for public comment.
Okay. So we will move on. There's no old business. And let's record show that John Kites joined us at was 7:10. So we're moving on to new business. 5.1, approve the department facilities.
Can't hear.
Can you
Hey,
hear me?
darling, you're a little difficult to hear.
Okay, I think I was blocking. So we're moving on to item 5, new business. 5.1, approve the department facility uses and park fees for 2021, 2022. Someone want to move that? Okay. So I don't know if we need any further discussion about that. Do we need to review that again? Quickly, Nick?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just mention the changes in this year's fees, the ones that we did post as well for the public. Basically, we are proposing to go to a non-resident daily launch and exit pass of $40. Have the resident boat stickers, the unlimited launch, be $30 and $25 for seniors. The non-resident season launch stickers to be $300. And I'm sorry, I need to back up one. Not 30 and 25, 30 and 20 for the seniors. 300 for the non-resident season launch stickers, and then the Norwalk Marina business launch sticker of $750. Those are the numbers and those are the changes we discussed at our last meeting and are being proposed for approval tonight. I do also want to mention, Councilmember Kites asked me for some numbers from last year in terms of sales of passes. Weekday passes, we sold 501. Weekend passes, we sold 299. Those were non-resident daily passes. And then season passes, non-residents, 94 total. Residents, the $20 passes, we sold 364. And then resident, which would be seniors, $15. We sold those last year. Those were 63 in total as far as sales. So 501 for weekday passes, 299 for a weekend. And again, the change this year was we're basically having a flat fee instead of having a variable rates on weekends versus weekdays. And then season passes, 94 sold for non-residents, 364 for residents, and then 63 for seniors. So those were the numbers from last year.
Thanks, Nick.
Any other questions? Nope. All in favor? Aye.
Nice.
Opposed, abstentions, great. Passes. Moving on to 5.2. Approve the use of the City of Norwalk visitors docks for a collaborative pilot program for the summer of 2021 between the United States Department of the Interior Fish and Wildlife Service and the Norwalk Recreation and Parks Department. The USFWS would be allowed to keep their manned vessel at the docks in one of the areas not used by anyone due to the draft in return for bullet point 1, allow island keepers to better serve visitors and provide enhanced public access to islands that are part of the McKinney National Wildlife Refuge. Bullet point 2, provide 2 fully trained staff in boating safety operations, first aid, and CPR, as well as visitor services. Bullet 3, extra watch of city property after normal work hours. Bullet 4, collaborative education programs, including city island cleanup and site projects. Bullet 5, days of operation will be May 1st through November 1st, 2021. Someone move the item? George?
Emmanuel Andrella? Oh,
George had his hand up, okay. Oh. Have anything to say about this one?
Yes.
Or is anyone here?
No, we sent the invites out to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Not sure why they're not on the call, but I will speak to this agreement. This is actually not a pilot program. We've done this a number of years. They do provide extra eyes and ears on the docks. They do provide cleanups of the islands, which the Parks Department doesn't have a boat to get to. So this is actually a really helpful partnership with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And the days of operation is listed as May 1st and November 1st, but they generally show up in June and they generally leave around September. But we just put the wider window because it's never really a set date. But this has been a good partnership for the city, and we do value their being on the docks and providing those extra eyes to supervise the area during the summer.
Any questions? Someone move the item?
I'll move it.
John, you have a question?
Well, I'll move it and also say, I mean, I know they've been doing this forever. Nix, how long has it been?
I think it's been at least 7 years prior to my arrival, but it's been at least 7 years, and they do a really good job. They organize, I think, at least 2 or 3 cleanups of the islands over the summer where volunteers go to clean up litter and debris that's washed up on the shore, and it's been really good to have them sort of supervise what goes on in those parking lots at night after staff leaves in the summer as well.
Well, 7 years, I've never heard one negative thing. So, I mean, I fully support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, abstentions? Great, passes. So for the next 3 items, these are actually events that we are beginning to schedule in our parks. I'm sorry, did you say
2 out of the 3.
2 out of the 3?
Last one's
So one of the things that we are very mindful of at the city is that we're still going through this COVID and we just don't know where we're going to be. But as one of our speakers said, we want to be hopeful and start planning because we're hoping that things will change and we can get back to some of those things that we used to enjoy. But to that extent, we have to say, make a disclaimer, and the city of Norwalk reserves the right to cancel any events for public health or safety reasons as determined by the city of Norwalk and at its sole discretion, and the city of Norwalk shall not be liable for the canceling of any events. We understand that a lot of times to go through this process, you've got to, put out some money and make those deposits. And we're hopeful that we can move forward with these events, particularly the dog show, which has been a staple of this community for a very long time. And so many of the other events we're talking about putting on this year. So with that, we're going to move on to 5.3. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with the Norwalk Karting Association for the use of Calf Pasture Beach for the spring and fall of 2021 season to be held on the following dates from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Spring 2021 to March 13th. Spring 2021, March 13th, 20th, 27th, April 10th, 17th, 24, May 1, Fall 2021, October 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23, and 30th, November 6th, 13th, and 20th. Please note that dates may be available depending on scheduled events. Someone want to move the item? George? Okay, thank you. Anyone here from Carding, from Nor Carding? Is that Mr. Tom? You're muted, Tom.
Yes. Am I off mute now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'm from Carding. This is our 50th year.
Your what year?
50th.
50?
Yes.
Jeez.
And Tom, can you just talk about the program, the ages it serves, the amount of participants, those types of things?
Yeah. So we start off the 5-year-olds. We've had up to 63, I think, or 64-year-old racing. We've had 9 people go from this club to be professionals in the racing world, between NASCAR and a couple other lower NASCAR things and stuff. Like I said, it's 50 years. I don't know what else.
I think that's enough, Tom. 50 years kind of says it all. That's amazing accomplishment to have been doing something like this for so long. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5.4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with Greenwich Kennel Club, Longshore Southport Kennel Club for the use of Taylor Farm for their 89th Greenwich Kennel Club AKC Dog Show, Obedience and Rally Trials, and Longshore Southport Kennel Club AKC Dog Show to be held Saturday, June 12th, 2021, and Sunday, June 13th, 2021, from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Set up to take place at 6 a.m. on Thursday, June 10th, 2021, with tear down no later than 12 noon on Monday, June 14th, 2021. Estimated attendance 500 or less. Someone want to move the item? Tom, thank you. Hello. So we have Miss Joy and Dr. Stacy.
Yes. I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay. Some comments on the show this year is completely different. Normally we have over 290, basically 300 breeds of dogs. This year, there will only be 7 breeds each day. So 14, a total of 14 over the 2 days. So it's drastically, cut down. We at this point are not including spectators. I mean, if everything opens up, we're still not going to be doing, massive marketing or anything like that. The safety of the exhibitors, the judges, and the dogs, of course, are paramount, and we certainly understand that we're under the jurisdiction of the city of Norwalk as well as the state, so that's not a problem either. We've been having dog shows in several states since, like in Massachusetts, since last October. They've had dog shows. We have very, very strict regiments that we have to do, including there's separate entrances and exits to each ring. The distance is maintained, the masks for everybody. They check the temperatures when you come in. We have, the big thing is that, in the rings, judges only judge 25 dogs an hour. So it's basically a come and go, show and go. So it's not, we said 500 or less, but there, probably be maybe 100 at the most because of the dogs that are coming and going. Once the people are and the dogs are finished exhibiting, then they leave as such. We also, the big Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, they took our dates for this year only, which is why another reason why we are way cut down, and their show is going to be in New York if they can have their show. And so we will have some motorhomes and stuff that are not really related to our show, but they can't park on Lyndhurst Estate in Terrytown. So they will be, parking with us, and then they'll be going down to New York. But we will have, exhibitors and breeders that will, be in the hotels and motels and, visit the restaurants and so on like that for the economy, our usual things like that. We have waivers that the exhibitors have to sign and present, regarding COVID, if that's the situation at the time. But we certainly appreciate your, bringing this up and allowing us to at least get some preliminary work done. Actually, a lot of it has already been done with anticipating that, things are and will be opening up the way they are, the way it appears right now. If it continues, actually, I think we'll be in very good shape. But as I said, we still are very, very scaled down for this year. And then next year, we'll be back to our regular routines, hopefully. You have any questions, Joe? Nick?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I know you said you're cutting down the number of breeds that's showing.
Right.
At any given point in time, how many people do you estimate to be at the event and on the site? You said that they shuffle through about an hour at a time. How many people will be on site at any given time?
Probably no more than 100, 200 very much at times. I mean, we also have, in the backfield, that's where the Fast Cat was going to be. So that's another complete separate section. And the field is so big, both the fields are so big, with such a scaled down thing. I mean, there really isn't a distance problem at all.
Yeah, the one thing that I would mention is currently we're in phase 2.1 of the state's reopening plan. I believe the limitations right now as far as capacity is 10 inside and 50 outside for recreational events. So of course, as we get closer, hopefully those restrictions will get lifted, but I don't know if it will be at 200 at that point in time. And you may want to start thinking about how to reduce the numbers a little bit further to keep within the threshold. Usually last year they went from 50 to 100 to 150. So you may just want to start looking at how to keep those numbers down within the thresholds that may be in place at the time.
Right. Okay. Well, we understand that. And I mean, actually, the way that is set up, the AKC rules, each breed is limited to 100 dogs for the day, so it'll as I said, there's be a lot of coming and going. And we're also want to institute, just like there'll be one entrance and one exit, and cut off the back and exit and entrance so that we can really control what's coming in.
One of the things we did with youth athletics was space out the times in between, so that way you're not shuffling as many people in the same place at the same time. So stagger the start times or the showing of one versus the second one. It may be like a 15 or a 20-minute window before you schedule the second one in. So you may be able to reduce the capacity just by scheduling alone. So some of those things.
Well, there are schedules, and it will be that way. That's the regular schedule anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, people that are judging it like 8:30 in the morning are not going to be there, or judging like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon are not going to come at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's a normal situation. But we'll work with whatever we can on that and keep it straight.
Any questions? Nope. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, abstentions? Great. Motion passes, item passes. Okay, number 555. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a cooperative agreement with the town of Wilton and Friends of Norwalk River Valley Trail, Inc. concerning the retention of a construction contractor and post-construction maintenance of the walk section of the Norwalk River Valley Trail and any and all necessary documents required to perform the cooperative agreement. Someone want to move the item?
Manny Langella moved.
Thank you, Manny. Okay,
So,
and that's,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, go ahead, Nick.
No, I had the city attorney, Darren Callahan, scheduled to go over this agreement. He unfortunately fell ill and will not be able to join us tonight. I also don't see anyone from the NRVT on the call. Mike, I know you're on. You feel comfortable in presenting this for the committee, or should we pull it for next month's meeting?
I mean, I think I'm okay with discussing.
Okay.
it.
Mike, before you do that, though, I was a little quick, Ms. Brewster and Dr. Stacy. So thank you for coming to present, and I hope you're able to have your event this year and it turn out to be a success in whatever form it ends up being. So
Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank
we
you.
can go now? Good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, figure out how to get out of here.
Leave, right?
Leave. I see you leave. Okay, thank you.
You leave.
Leave.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Sure. A few years ago, the town of Wilton was able to get a grant from the state of Connecticut to construct a trail, mainly through Wilton, but it also extend down into Norwalk to connect in the future into the full NRVT, which will run from Calf Pasture Beach basically up to Danbury ultimately. But there's this section they would be constructing would be from basically Glover Avenue up behind the I Park there along the river and up into Wilton. It'll be a gravel type trail, and they're out to bid with it. And this project will be for them to maintain the section in Norwalk through the NRVT Friends Committee. I don't know if you have any other questions on it, or
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Mike. What is, just out of curiosity, what is pot construction?
I think that was a post-construction.
Oh, okay, that's,
I noticed
makes more sense.
Tom, it's like the walk trail, the walk section. That's
Yeah,
it here.
yeah, it's actually the Will Walk. It's the Wilton
Okay,
Norwalk.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. Anything else, Nick, or we need to know about?
No, this agreement is basically a contract between, and again, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, between the town of Wilton, the city of Norwalk, and the NRVT for the extension of the trail, and then for the NRVT to cover the maintenance of it moving forward, correct?
That's correct.
We're talking about this in a while. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Kadeem? Yeah? All
Yep,
right,
in
motion
favor. Aye,
passes.
Kadeem.
Thank you. Motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
All right, help me out. That's it, right? I have one other thing.
I have
Yeah.
something quick after Darlene too. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Chairwoman.
All right. Yes, Manny.
So super quick, just kind of following up on the public comments earlier. I guess number one, thank you, Miss Sadler, for sharing your comments. And I know we had chatted earlier. I think from my side, kind of tying off of that, Nick, is there anywhere that we can go to from our side to kind of look at maybe who's like a schedule, like a weekly schedule where we know like what organizations perhaps are renting the field? Like, is there perhaps a percentage of utilization we have per organization? So essentially, like I guess what I'm trying to look to understand is a weekly or monthly view per organization per day, and then also almost like a share or utilization of how much each organization is utilizing, and then a breakdown, maybe a segmentation of age group of those organizations. So I think that's just an additional ask I have going forward, or if there's somewhere I can reference to try and compile that data. So I guess like three-part ask.
So yes, that is something that we're working on. That's something that we understand and realize that there's a need for. And it's something that I've been working on since I got here 2 years ago. But since then, we've had the school schedules move, staggered schedules, so they're getting out later, which pushes back when they start their sports and when they end their sports. That was one factor. Then COVID was another factor where things was shut down. And then the third factor we have now coming is that middle school sports are being reinstated, right? So we've never really gotten a chance to set a schedule to determine who's using our fields at any given point in time. It's also difficult to do a daily schedule and pinpoint who exactly is where, because everything is weather dependent, right? So a field may show availability on one day, but if the day previously was booked and it gets rained out, they may shift to the next day. So it's very difficult to move and keep up to date day-to-day calendars of field facility and usage. Going back to the public comment portion, Ms. Sadler stated that we didn't permit any usage of our fields last year. That's not so. So when COVID hit last year, everything was restricted and nothing was reopened by the state until late June. We actually had a week in between the state's announcement and us preparing the fields for athletic games for the upcoming summer season. We took a week off. That's when we got sort of hammered in the news about being behind on the field maintenance. But we did permit our programming partners for sports last year. We did run camps, we did run soccer, we did run baseball, we did run all of our typical regular programming for the summer. So that's not particularly true. As far as new permittees, prior to my arrival here, I was told that there was a moratorium on new permits and contracts coming in to use our fields, right? I went back to the research. That's not fact. But we do want to hold off on permitting any new programs until we can first figure out what and how our fields are being used. We have an internal priority ranking of how those fields are going to be allocated. First, to schools, right? Because they're for scholastic games. They're going to be number one on the list. Second on the list will be park and rec programs and activities. Third on the list will be non-for-profit programming partners like our Babe Ruth leagues, like our NJSA soccer groups, and so forth. Fourth will be adult programs. And then fifth will be for-profit groups, right? So that is our internal ranking of how we prioritize who gets what. But until we can figure out what it is the school needs are, and again, those things have changed over the last 3 years, until we can get through an entire year, an entire cycle of pinning down what it is that they actually need, and now middle school sports as well, then we put our parks program in, whatever's available, and then we take care of our non-for-profit programming partners, then we'll be able to determine what's available. It is something we understand and agree. We need to have a calendar to show what's available and not available, but there's been a lot of factors over the last 2 years and why we haven't developed that calendar. But we are aware of it. We do plan on having a meeting this February with the youth programming partners that we have to let them know exactly what that priority ranking is and what we will be doing in the next year or so that way they're not blindsided in the future. So that meeting is set to happen sometime this month but we're still waiting to finalize the needs of the school first before we can get back to the programming partners. But we are aware of the issue. We are working on it, but it's not as easy as just pull it out of a system and get all the information, out of it.
Right. So I just want to say thank you in advance for the work that you will be doing, and also thank you for everything that you have done. I know that we've chatted about this in the past as well too, and I can certainly appreciate all the hard work that you've done during COVID as well, and that curveball that was thrown at you. So I just want to make sure I say thank you, but also seek to try and understand. I think the part that kind of struck home was, I think the last thing we want is somebody to have to leave Norwalk. Specifically, I'm trying to understand more about the for-profit organizations.
Yeah,
and thank you for the prioritization piece. So
part of the reason why people had to leave Norwalk to go for other places, participating in youth sports, is because each municipality handled the COVID restrictions differently.
Right.
Followed the Department of Health's guidelines. We went based on what their recommendations were, but there were other smaller towns and municipalities that may not have had the same infection rate as we did, or their health director may have gone in a different direction. That was the predominant reason of why some folks in Norwalk chose to travel to other locations. I think it happened with one of our tackle football programs. Tackle football was allowed in one municipality, but wasn't allowed by Department of Health in Norwalk. And that's why you saw teams from Norwalk travel to that town to play their games. So yes, part of the issue is field availability, field permits, but COVID really did throw a curveball in this last year.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I was taken out of context. I can certainly understand the COVID restriction, cause people to look elsewhere. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I'm specifically just trying to understand the for-profit piece, and certainly I just want to say thank you for sharing that prioritization, like the 1, 2, 3, 4, like that all certainly makes sense to me. And I appreciate all the work you will be doing and all that you have done with COVID. So my apologies if anything I said was taken out of context. I understand that people went other places because of COVID. I want to drill into the for-profit piece and make sure that we understand that more. But I know you're on it. And again, thank you and the team for everything you've done and will be doing. So, and I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
So Tom, and then John.
Yeah. Hi, Nick. I can shed a little light on what that moratorium that was instituted about 2011, 2012, because I was in on it as the president of the Norwalk Athletic Association. Mike Mulcahy, your predecessor, asked all of us if we would support it. We did. And it basically was a supply and demand issue. He was having so many different organizations come to him looking for field space, and he could not give the permits because they didn't have the field space.
Correct.
And so he restricted it to those partners, as you so designated them, that were already using the fields to be the people who use the fields going forward. Manny, I would have liked to have heard from the lady who spoke what specific teams she was talking about. There are, and Nick will know this, and I'm very involved in youth sports. There are a number of pay-to-play groups that are just popping up everywhere, be it girls softball, young kids baseball. I'm not just talking about, your kid pays $300-400 and that covers the expenses. Now I'm talking about the league, the coaches, the organization itself making a heck of a lot of money.
Right.
And Nick and I talked about this when he first came to town. And at least from our perspective, all we are is about the kids playing. And that's the leagues that you remember, Darlene, the NAA softball program, and the Babe Ruth League, and the Cal Ripken kids, and George, and the football program, the Packers. They're now called the Ducks or something. But so that's basically the history of it. It was because, as Nick indicated, it was a matter of supply and demand. Parks and Rec just could not find fields for everybody that wanted to use them.
And Tom, that number increased last year once the high school teams weren't allowed to play their season. we saw an increase in the number of requests for new permits and new users to use facilities because they were looking for an outlet because the kids
Right.
couldn't go to school. So that was one of the driving factors last year of why we saw an increase in the number of permits.
Right. Okay.
It was quite some time ago, and hey, rightfully so. It's time to take a look at it, revisit it, you know?
Yeah.
What everything's doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the context too, Tom, as well. I appreciate that. So,
But
Any
Tom,
other
I
comments?
also went back to the meeting minutes and I could never actually find a formal document for the moratorium. That I saw the discussion on the record, but I couldn't find anything formally putting it in place. And that's why I didn't want to stick to something that there wasn't a formal agreement.
John?
Just to finish off your sentence, I mean, Nick, I mean, our parks are run by like an old boys group for quite some time. So, I mean, I think that not finding this moratorium reflected in any minutes is of no surprise. You know, and this isn't something that just Jody brings up now and hasn't been talked about for years. I mean, I've been talking about it for years as well. I mean, this whenever it comes up and having these smaller leagues, you know, I remember my daughter playing field hockey and a bunch of other, you know, actually mostly girl related sports. But yeah, I appreciate you even starting this process. I know it's complex. I know there's a lot of moving pieces. I know you're going to get some kickback from the individual leagues as far as, you know, hey, you're not going to take my time. I totally get it. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're using our field. So, I mean, hopefully we can hold strong and actually get something done. Real quick, do we have any nonprofits that have use of the fields that aren't taking advantage of it and don't have any programs?
I think last year was an anomaly because of COVID, right? There were organizations that typically had sites that would run their programs and they would have a certain number of teams. But last year with COVID, the registration was way down. Prior to that, I think we were trending upwards. We were back in that same point that we talked about where field space was limited. But last year threw that off, and I don't know what it's going to look like upcoming this year because there's so many variables again.
I mean, to put into like some parameters or some, you know, specifics into the contract, because I'm assuming now they're saying, okay, we're allowed to use the field from whatever it is, May to July, and that's they have access, you know, exclusively. I mean, like I said, I know you're going to get some kickback from these leagues, but maybe just kind of shrinking that window and being a little bit more realistic and a little bit more courteous. So maybe we can just sprinkle in a few other of these other leagues. I mean, and like I said, I get it. There's a lot of moving parts, you know, but maybe some software can help with this as well. I don't know if.
Yes, our new recreation superintendent has been talking to a lot of the coaches. She actually did the schedule last year once. Our previous athletic coordinator retired, so she's taking it over. She's really gotten her hands into it and learned about who's where. And COVID was actually, I hate to say this, but it was a good thing in that with us being able to clear everyone off the field and limit everyone from playing, we got phone calls from everyone saying, hey, I used to be at this site. And we'd said, we don't have a permit from you. We don't have an agreement with you, right? So it did uncover a lot of unpermitted usage. And that's why I wanted to get through just one calendar year of normal operations where we can accommodate the schools, now accommodate middle school, now accommodate our programs. And again, we're trying to grow our programming because again, like Tom said, we're trying to provide equitable access to all recreational programs. A lot of these non-for-profits and for-profits youth groups are focused more so on travel and competitive. And that's why the prices are $1,500, $1,600 in some instances. But generally the Parks Department has been that developmental league, right? Like we don't focus on competition. We focus on development. We focus on equitable access for opportunity. Those are the types of programming that we want to get to. So yes, you are going to see a larger footprint by the Parks Department in implementing our own programs. And that's why we are going to take some of the field space that isn't used by the programming partners. That's why I think that priority and that ranking of who should have access to them, I think that's what works, right? You care of the schools, you take care of the park programs, you take care of the non-for-profit folks, you take care of the adult leagues, which are huge, and then you try to satisfy whatever is left for the non-for-profits. Because again, I mean, for the for-profits, that's not our focus, and that shouldn't be our focus as a parks department. We should be focused on developmental side of things, not the competitive sides. And if it requires them to go and permit or pay a different fee because they're a for-profit, then we'll do so. But I think that priority ranking is essential moving forward.
I agree. And I mean, it's so easy just to, throw the blanket of moratorium on everything. So I'm happy to see that we're starting this conversation, moving that ball forward.
And again, most programming partners or most of these community-based organizations we're talking about, like the Pop Warners and like the Babe Ruths and the Cal Ripkens, there's generally agreements with the municipality in place. There's no agreements with anyone, right? So it's another step that we're gonna have to look at if we're gonna have to create these agreements for these groups. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that should have been done a long time ago, and now we're trying to put in place. And yes, it's gonna rub some people the wrong way. It may take more time, and for instance, but I think we're doing it the right way. And I think having the priority list and having an idea of who's actually out there, actually going out and putting eyes on some of these facilities, because we have run into cases where some of these leagues are subleasing it out to other groups. We may give a permit to NJSA to run soccer programs, and then you may see NJSA sublease out their fields to another group to come in and run summer camps, right? So all those things we've sort of discovered and seen out there. And I think COVID really got us to a point where we can just eliminate everything, get an idea of who's out there. And now as we go through one cycle, we can figure out who needs to be where and what's available, and then go from there.
Right. I mean, a lot of these leagues have gotten comfortable with the old boys league. And now we've grown to the size where I think we need to just rein them in and just kind of streamline this process. And and they're gonna have to make some concessions.
Absolutely.
This process.
And there are going to be some upset people. There are going to be some upset people, and we're going to hear about it. But this process is long overdue, and so here we are.
But I think also the investment in the facilities themselves, right? With the development of turf fields, with the ability to now program those spaces, longer days, longer seasons, we now have additional availability and additional programming space. That's why those turf fields are critical as well. They're an important piece, and I know we face some criticisms about the materials we use, but that's the benefit of turf versus grass. We're trying to play youth sports in essentially a spring and a summer and partly fall season, right? And then you're having all these people playing a shortened season on the same fields over and over. The fields can't withstand the heavy traffic of these youth sports in a short period, and that's the benefit of turf, right? So as we finish West Rocks, and as we get to the softball field of Brian McMahon, and as we get to Broad River, you'll have more availability come up, and we'll be able to accommodate others as we move forward.
And to your point about rain dates and things being kind of pushed to the next day with turf fields, I mean, you could muscle through a torrential downpour. I remember sitting out there watching my kids play. I'm like, are you kidding me? But the fields were fine, so.
Yep.
I mean, so that may allow more openings for.
And because we've never graded these fields, and we've never done really work on the grass field, right? It may rain on Monday, and you may show up on Wednesday, and there's still muddles out there, right? So again, I know we get criticized for turf, but there's a reason why we're going to this.
No, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Great conversation. Anybody else? All right. So what's the next motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I think Don Keidy's had his hand up first for that one, so he made that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This was good. Thank you very much, guys. This was a good meeting.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good
Night.
night.